All right, hello everyone, and welcome to today's live cooking demonstration. My name is Ryan Smith. I am the Wellness Program Administrator with Georgia State University's Employee Development and Wellness Services. By trade, I am a registered dietitian, so I'm always on the hunt for new recipes that I can share with people to make their lives a little bit healthier and just speed up the cooking process. So before we jump into today's recipe, just a couple quick things. We are going to be recording today's session so that you can view it again at a later time or share it with a colleague who may not have been able to attend today. We're going to be making use of the WebEx chat feature. So if you've got any questions, comments, anything like that, please feel free to put them in the chat and we'll be sure to review those at the end of today's presentation. Additionally, I'm joined today by my colleague, Cheryl Johnson-Rantoff, who's online moderating the chat as well to provide any technical support we may need. So if you have any audio-visual issues, please make sure to send a message to all panelists. That will ensure that Cheryl is able to see it and help diagnose any potential problems that may arise. So real quick here, let's make sure everything is all set. And yes, we are good to begin. So we're going to be making a superfood salad with a lemon dressing today. Now, the word superfood gets tossed around in a lot of different places about a lot of different foods, but basically what this is boiling down to is we are picking a variety of ingredients that are packed with vitamins and minerals. So we're looking for things that are going to bring a lot of nutrition to our body, enhance our well-being, and make us feel good. In terms of equipment, this is a very, very simple recipe. You're going to need a cutting board, some mixing bowls. I do recommend, I'm going to be using this absolutely gigantic bowl. If you've got a really big bowl, that's going to be helpful. We're going to be making and mixing the salad in there. Alternatively, because you are probably going to have some leftovers from this, you can use a large Tupperware container with a lid on it so you can seal it and store it in the fridge for a little bit later. But that's the main equipment. There is one ingredient I do want to make a special note about, and that is that we are using quinoa today. Now, if you're unfamiliar with quinoa, it is a very heart-healthy whole grain. It's kind of similar to brown rice. That's the closest thing I can compare it to. But it's got a different texture, really nice flavor to it, and is incredibly healthy. It's a great source of fiber. It has a little bit of protein in it as well to boost the nutrition. Now, I've gone ahead and pre-made this. So this is 2 cups of cooked quinoa, which is what you need for this recipe. You'll need 2/3 of a cup of dried quinoa in order to prepare it. So I made that on the stovetop. That's something I did ahead of time just to speed things up today. So the other equipment you will need is a way to cook that quinoa on the stovetop. You can buy some quick microwavable quinoa packets at the store. They're a little bit pricier, but that is an option if you're worried about not having access to a stovetop. So we've gone ahead and made that 2 cups of quinoa. Now this is the tri-colored quinoa that I purchased from Kroger. There are a variety of different colors of quinoa. They're all very healthy, so you're welcome to choose whatever variety you prefer. I just like the visual distinction of the tri-colored quinoa. I think it looks really fun and flavorful, so that's why I went with that one. So we've already got that set up, and I'll just walk you through the other ingredients as we use them. So we're going to be doing quite a bit of vegetable prep today. Let's start with our bell peppers. We're going to use 2. You can pick any color if you'd like. I went for orange and yellow because we have some tomatoes bringing some red to the dish, cucumber bringing some green to the dish, along with our lettuce. So I like to have sort of that rainbow medley of vegetables whenever I can. How something looks impacts our desire to eat it. You know, if you're looking at menu items and they look really colorful and flavorful, it gets us excited to eat that food. So that's why I'm going for that color diversity. In terms of nutrition, orange, red, and yellow bell peppers are all very, very similar in nutrition. Green bell peppers are a little bit different, still very healthy, but they are going to be slightly different. They're going to be a little bit lower in some of the vitamin content, but still good for you. I want to emphasize that. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by cutting this bell pepper. Now I'm just using a chef's knife for this, and my technique for cutting the bell pepper, because it's such an irregular shape, is I try to make it a little simpler to cut into. So I've gone ahead and rinsed it. The first thing I'm going to do is, you'll notice I curl my fingertips under my knuckles to protect the fingertips when I'm cutting, just in case the knife somehow comes into contact with my hand. We want to protect those fingertips. So I'm going to cut off just the top of the bell pepper, like so. And then I'm going to repeat that process to cut off a little bit of the bottom as well. And the goal here is we are sort of setting up this tube that we're going to work with. Usually when you cut into a bell pepper, you'll have anywhere from 3 to 4 connection points. Go ahead and take your knife and just cut into those. Shouldn't be too difficult. And this will allow you to easily remove that core or that center of the bell pepper, and we can discard that. Now we've got this hollow tube, and we're going to make a cut into it. And this gives us these strips that we can flatten, which makes them a lot easier and safer to cut. So we're going to chop into this, and really from here, I'm just going to cut it into vertical strips. If you'd like to, and I recommend doing this for the salad, you can then turn it 90 degrees perpendicular, and we'll run the knife through again to get us some nice little cube pieces, maybe about 3/4 of an inch in size, just good bite-sized pieces for the salad. So let's repeat that process with this other piece here. Again, I'm cutting these vertical strips, and then we're going to rotate 90 degrees, line them up, and make another cut to get our nice even dice. For the top and bottom pieces, they are a little more regular shaped. I try to repeat the same strategy as well as I can, which is to cut vertical strips and then turn. And at this point, our goal is to just get them to be roughly equivalent in size to those other pieces. Does not have to be perfect. For the top piece, I'm going to just cut off the edible portion. I try to usually avoid the stem. You can carve around that to really get as much out of the pepper if you'd like to, but I'm mostly just going to make these cuts to cut off that edible portion and avoid that little core piece that we took out earlier. So we'll discard the rest of this, and then we'll chop this up nicely as well. So we'll set that to the side. So we're going to repeat that process for this orange bell pepper, but let's talk about the nutrition of the pepper and what it's bringing to the table. Again, both the yellow and orange are very, very nutritious. So bell peppers are actually a very good source of vitamin C, which is great for our immune system. And it's interesting, I think a lot of people, when they think of vitamin C, they think of enjoying an orange. And oranges are a good source of vitamin C, but there are a lot of vegetables that are rich in vitamin C as well. And we can work those into the diet to support our immune system. The other thing that the bell pepper is bringing, like any vegetable, is it's bringing fiber. Now, fiber is such a great thing to incorporate. Typically, most Americans are falling short of the fiber recommendation for each day. And fiber helps us digest things, or it helps with our digestion. It keeps our system flowing and moving in a good way. It helps with blood sugar control because fiber can slow down our digestion a little bit to help our body slowly absorb the nutrients and not have as big of a peak in blood sugar. It can also help with healthy cholesterol management. So if you've ever been told that you've got high cholesterol or borderline high cholesterol, incorporating more fiber into your diet can help bring that back down to a good level. And then finally, it can help with weight management or healthy weight maintenance because fiber tends to make us feel fuller on less food. So we can eat lower calorie foods and still feel like we've had enough to eat, which is a great, great boost to the overall benefits of this meal. So I'm going to take my big mixing bowl now just to keep room on my cutting board. Let's go ahead and scoop those bell pepper pieces straight into the bowl. That way we can continue to work with the cutting board. So our next ingredient is going to be an English cucumber is what I'm using today, and we're just going to slice this up. Now, the main differences between an English cucumber and a regular cucumber, there are not going to be any seeds inside of this one. They're also typically much thinner and longer, but it really doesn't matter too much nutritionally. They're both beneficial, and functionally, in terms of whether you're putting on a sandwich, a salad, or a wrap, they both work well. So if you just want to buy a regular cucumber, you can absolutely do that. They tend to be slightly cheaper than the English ones. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually cut this in half first just to make it a little more manageable. It's a very, very sizable vegetable. And then we're just going to do some thin slices of this English cucumber. Now the recipe actually calls for an entire English cucumber, but if you get a really big one, you may only want to do half of it. I will leave that up to you. If you're a big fan of cucumber, you can definitely work in more. And again, we are just cutting through it, going for some reasonably thin slices. Now, as you're cutting this, again, whenever I'm making something for a salad, I try to imagine what would be a good bite-sized piece. Some people might find the smaller diameter of the English cucumber to be a great bite-sized piece. Other people might feel like it's a little large, and if you do, you can stack a couple of cucumber pieces like so, and then just slice your knife through them to cut them in half into slightly smaller pieces. But again, I'll leave that up to you to decide if that's what you want to do for your superfood salad. So we are cutting up that And this actually looks like a pretty good amount of cucumber to me. I'm going to add it to our mixing bowl here again. And then I'll probably save the other half of mine for another recipe or something else later this week because it was a pretty large cucumber. But again, that's entirely up to you. All right. Our next vegetable we're going to be working with is grape or cherry tomatoes, entirely up to you which variety you want to get. And we're just going to cut them in half. So I've already gone ahead and cut most of them in half just to save us some time today. Not super exciting to watch me cut tomatoes, but what I recommend for this, as much as I love my trusty chef's knife, it's overkill for cutting something this small and even potentially dangerous. So if you've got a small knife or like a paring knife, these work really well. You can hold that tomato in place and cut it in half and then add it to the pile. Now, in terms of the amount of tomatoes we're going to use, this is a carton of tomatoes that I bought at Kroger. This is 10 ounces. They will vary in size, but we're looking for 2 cups of cherry or grape tomatoes. If you're at the store and you're not sure how ounces will convert over to the cups, a good rule of thumb is if you ball up your fist and clench it, that's about the size of 1 cup. So you can imagine 2 fists next to each other, roughly 2 cups, and that's about what we're aiming for, but it will not make or break the salad if you're a little over or a little under. Now, tomatoes are really nutrition superstars, packed with vitamins and minerals, vitamin A, vitamin C, so they are helping our body in a variety of ways, from our immune system to just basic function. They are also a rich source of something called lycopene, which is an antioxidant that has cancer-fighting properties. So if you're trying to decrease your risk of certain cancers through your healthy diet, tomatoes are such a good food to work into that. So you'll see me adding them to all sorts of different recipes. So we've gone ahead and cut these in half. Now, this is another thing where if you're not crazy about the size of the half of the tomato, you can go ahead and quarter it and cut it in half again. But I find that the halves work pretty well for our salad, so we'll go ahead and dump that in. So right now, we're just working with a really, really big bowl of vegetables. We are going to add some more to it because vegetables are great. We love the nutrition, the fiber, the water, the vitamins and minerals, but we do want to bring in other things to make this a true meal and balance things out a little better. So let's set that over to the side. And what we're going to do next is we are actually going to prepare our dressing. We're going to be working with some mixed greens today. Now, you can use whatever kind of greens you want. Kale is what's in the photo that I showed at the beginning of this demonstration. I'm using a mixture of a couple of different types of lettuces and greens. I like the variety that brings. But work with whatever you'd like. It's all going to work well in the salad. But we do want to make a dressing to add flavor, not only to this, but to those raw vegetables, and to sort of bring the whole dish together when we add in everything. So using a medium-sized mixing bowl, I'm going to walk you through the lemon dressing that we're going to be making. So we're going to start off with 6 tablespoons of olive oil, which is quite a lot. I should note that this recipe makes 6 servings, so whenever you see me add a large amount of ingredients like that, that's why we're coming into, oh, my cat is, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. My cat is trying to walk onto the counter behind there. We're going to be adding 6 tablespoons because it's 6 servings, so these large amounts of ingredients will get divided down into those smaller portions. So let's go ahead and add our 6 tablespoons to this small bowl. Now, we're using extra virgin olive oil today. This is an oil that is heart healthy because it's higher in unsaturated fats and lower in the saturated fats. So that's usually what makes something heart healthy, is that fat profile. And extra virgin olive oil is really common in salad dressing because it works well, it has a nice flavor to it, but it's sort of a delicate oil. And what I mean by that is it has a low smoke point. So if you were to cook on a stovetop with it, it's going to smoke quickly, which is not good for the oil. So we don't usually recommend using extra olive oil for a lot of cooking applications because when the heat hits a certain temperature, it's going to smoke. But for salad dressings where we're not cooking it, we're keeping it at a nice temperature like this, it's a wonderful ingredient. Next, we're going to use, so that was 6 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. Next, we're going to do 3 tablespoons of lemon juice. Now, if you prefer, you can use fresh lemons. I think fresh lemons always taste better, but the simplicity of being able to have bottled lemon juice is just a really nice convenience because you can buy a large container, keep it in that fridge, and then not have to worry about it. So I'll leave that up to you again if you want to go fresh or not, but I've made it with the bottled lemon juice before, and I think it tastes really nice. So lemon juice and olive oil in there, again, 6 tablespoons of the olive oil, 3 tablespoons of the lemon juice. We're going to add a little bit of seasoning to this. This is a 1/4 teaspoon of ground black pepper going in, 1/2 teaspoon of salt going in, and then finally, we're going to do 1 teaspoon of honey. So we're using the honey to add a little bit of sweetness to the dressing. We want some salt, some sweetness, that tartness from the lemon juice, really giving it a nice rounded flavor profile. Now, if you do not have honey on hand at home, that is okay. You can substitute the 1 teaspoon of honey for a teaspoon of table sugar or brown sugar. Both of those will work well, but I like the flavor of the honey here. Nutritionally, honey and sugar are actually pretty much identical. A lot of people think that honey is automatically healthier, while local honey can have some allergen benefits. In terms of calories, in terms of the grams of sugar present in it, they're actually identical. So that's why we can swap for like table sugar if we'd like to. And then using a whisk, go ahead and whisk the olive oil, lemon juice, black pepper, salt, and honey together. And our goal here is just to incorporate them so that the juice and the oil become one rather than being separated, and that those seasonings get mixed around in there along with the honey. And you shouldn't have to whisk too much. You'll know it's done when everything looks even and distributed. It should just look like a bottle of salad dressing. So we're going to put that there, and we're going to move this over here to the side. All right. And now let's go ahead and pull our giant mixing bowl back in, because we're going to start combining these ingredients. Again, if you've got a really big bowl, I would recommend it because of the quantity of ingredients in this recipe. It makes 6 servings, so you can imagine needing a pretty big bowl for it. We're going to use 4 cups of our salad greens. Again, greens of your choosing. It can be kale, it can be mixed spring mix like this. When I use 4 cups, whenever I'm doing a salad, a lot of times I eyeball it, and we'll use that fist rule again. Again, 1 fist, clenched fist, is about 1 cup. Because of the nature of this recipe and the fact that we're making a big salad, some people may want to put in additional lettuce. That's entirely up to you. You don't have to be super precise with measuring the 4 cups. I'm sort of just going to be eyeballing it. Now, for a lot of ingredients, like if we're doing something with nuts or cheeses where they're pretty dense, I want to be very precise with the amount that I measure, because I don't want to accidentally put in too many calories or too much of something like that. With lettuce, though, it's so light in calories that it's really okay to eyeball it. That's kind of where I draw the line personally as a dietitian. So we'll get in a little more greens here. Again, we're going to still struggle to probably mix everything together because of how big this salad is. And now let's put some toppings on this. We've got this big bowl of vegetables again, bell pepper, cucumber, lettuce, and tomatoes, but we need more to balance it out. We're going to start by adding our 2 cups of cooked quinoa. This is a very healthy carbohydrate, so our body does like to run on carbohydrates. We just want to choose high quality and healthy versions of them, and quinoa is an excellent choice for that. So we added that in. Next, we want to balance it out with some protein. So we're going to be using a can of chickpeas or garbanzo beans today. That's the same thing. I've rinsed and drained them, so the chickpeas are ready to go. And chickpeas are a very fun little vegetable. They are a plant-based source of protein, so they are rich in fiber like a vegetable is, but they actually bring a good amount of protein to this meal so that we can have that protein to support our muscles and other tissues in our body. So we'll go ahead and add those in. So we've got healthy carbohydrates from our quinoa, some protein coming in from the chickpeas, lots of fiber from our vegetables. We can now add a little bit more healthy fats and some additional protein to round it out. We're going to use 1/2 cup of sliced almonds for this. Almonds, again, adding some protein, adding some crunch, which is nice for the texture, and adding some healthy fats as well. Nuts are a great way to get that in. Now, you can buy a small package of sliced almonds like this at the store in the baking aisle. I highly recommend buying them from the baking aisle because in the produce section, they have salad topping nuts, which is the exact same thing. It's sliced almonds, but they're just more expensive because they're marketed as a salad topping. I know it's kind of silly, but you'll save money if you go to the baking aisle and just buy one of these packages. So 1/2 cup of sliced almonds. Next, we're going to add some feta cheese. This is, again, bringing a little more protein, but also bringing some of that satisfying salty flavor and a little bit of fat as well. So you can see how we're trying to combine all these different nutrients. We want the protein, the fat, the carbohydrates. This is how we make a balanced meal. And we're also making a very fun meal with all this textural variety and flavor variety. So now you've got your gargantuan pile of ingredients. Let's pull this back a little bit. You can see all that in there. What I'm going to do is carefully start by just mixing things around a little bit, sort of separating the quinoa and the feta. I have all those vegetables at the bottom. Be patient here and just try to move those ingredients around. Again, if you're working with a smaller bowl, you can imagine how this will be tricky. It might actually be wise, if you don't have a really big bowl, to prep 2 medium-sized bowls and just split the ingredients. It can make it a little more manageable, a little easier to work with. So I've spread that around a little bit, and now you can probably imagine what's next. We have our dressing that we made. We're going to drizzle this on top of everything. Now, with a lot of salads, I usually recommend, we're going to get glass a little bit out of the spatula. I usually recommend for salads, don't put the dressing on until you're ready to eat it. That's typically what I say. I'll be telling people to store it in a small airtight container and add it to the salad right before you're ready to eat. The exception to this one is that these flavors, this dressing, marinates really well on these greens. It makes everything extra flavorful. In fact, the recipe will tell you, once you mix the salad together, to put it in an airtight container and let it marinate and chill in the fridge for at least 2 hours. That lets all those flavors soak in and really, really enhances the taste. You can eat it right away if you need to, but I do recommend marinating it. So that's why we're adding the dressing on top. Some people might be worried about, oh, is it going to get soggy if I do that? It's going to work really, really well with this salad, I promise you. And now I'm just tossing it around, trying to get every vegetable to get a little bit of contact with that dressing so that all the pieces can be equally flavorful and delicious. Right. The other thing you can do, if you have an airtight container that you're going to put it in with a lid, you can add the dressing, close that lid very securely, and shake it around. That'll help distribute the dressing as well, like a salad shaker would. Okay, so let's kind of show you what we're working with here. You can see, I mean, there's just so much happening, right? We put in all these ingredients. It's a very fun textural experience to get the crunch of the sliced almonds. You get the chickpeas, that satisfying salty taste from our feta cheese. Everything has the dressing on it with a little bit of salt, a little bit of sweetness, some of the tartness from the lemon juice. So there's so much coming into this. Let's plate a little bit of it so you can take a closer look at what that looks like. And again, nutritionally, this is truly a superfood salad. All the vitamins and minerals coming from all those different vegetables. We've got the healthy fats and protein from things like our chickpeas, our feta cheese, and our sliced almonds in there. And then we've got our carbohydrates in the form of the quinoa, which is adding fiber and giving us some quicker energy. And then the healthy fats and protein giving us that longer sustained energy. So there is a serving of the salad. Again, very colorful, very fun to look at because of that rainbow medley of vegetables. In terms of nutrition, each serving, again, it makes 6 servings, has about 400 calories and 15 grams of protein. That's a really nice balance for people who are maybe working on weight maintenance or even potentially trying to lose weight. If you're someone who's more active or a little bit larger, you could do a larger serving of the salad, or you could pair it with something like a piece of fruit on the side, or even if you wanted to add some animal protein to this, I think grilled chicken, that's kind of my go-to. If you've got a nice salad, adding grilled chicken to it can enhance it and add a little more calories if you're looking for something a little heartier. But I promise you, this is a very filling salad. All the fiber, all the different nutrients in there will make you very satisfied and excited to eat it. Store it in an airtight container in the fridge for up to 4 days. After that, that's kind of the cutoff for leftovers. But I really find that the longer it's in the fridge, the more that dressing marinates and makes things tasty. So that's why we recommend storing it for at least 2 hours and chilling it before serving. You definitely want to enjoy this cold. In terms of substitutions, because we've got quite a few ingredients in here, I mentioned the greens can be swapped out for kale. You could do spinach with this. Really, anything that you would enjoy as a salad, you can swap that out for the greens that I use. When we talk about the vegetables, I use bell pepper, cucumber, and tomatoes, but if there's another raw vegetable you want to use, throw it in there. You could use some shredded carrots and add those on top. I think that would bring, again, some more color to it, make it very tasty. For the quinoa, if maybe you're not a big fan of quinoa or you don't happen to have any on hand, brown rice would be a good substitute for that. do the same amount, so 2 cups of cooked brown rice, and add that in place of the quinoa, and that's another substitution option. And then the dressing we made is, I think, a pretty crowd-pleasing dressing. Most people will probably like it, but if you don't want to make your own dressing, you can use a dressing that you have in the refrigerator, of course. Looking for ones that are maybe a little bit heart healthier, you can look at the nutrition label and see ones that are higher in unsaturated fat and lower in saturated fat to make a decision based off of that. So I'm going to take a look at the chat real quick because I saw we had some questions and some comments. I want to make sure we address those. Oh, quite a few. Okay, I'm scrolling up. Let's see. Okay, here's someone commenting on the knife that is beautifully sharpened, cut the peppers like butter. So I want to tell you my secret about that. The knife is a $10 knife from Walmart. It is not a very nice knife, but it came with a sheath that sharpens it. So every time you put the knife in and take it out, it helps sharpen that knife. So finding one of those will make a big difference. Same thing, if you happen to have a knife sharpener, you can use a not super expensive knife and just keep it sharp and it'll work really well. Here's a question, is there a substitute for tomatoes? So like I mentioned before, you can really swap out any fresh vegetable that you want. That is a vegetable that you don't have to cook. So you could add cooked vegetables to this if that was your preference. You could take out the tomatoes and maybe add a red bell pepper if you really like the bell peppers and want to add more of that. I mentioned doing like shredded carrots, which will add some similar nutrients that you'd be losing if you took the tomatoes out. So things in that category would work well. Someone asked what my cat's name is. My cat's name is Spunky. I apologize that he was making a guest appearance today. He doesn't normally do that, but I guess he was in the mood. Here's a question, would cabbage be a good substitute / addition, or is it too chunky? I think you could definitely work with cabbage in here. Mind you that you'd want to cut it up into probably small pieces if you have like really big leaves of it. If you have something that has a stronger texture, like the sliced almonds, for example, I try to make it into smaller pieces so that you get a little bit of crunch, but it's not such a big mouthful that it's going to interrupt kind of the process of you eating it. Love quinoa. It travels well in lunches, much better than rice. Just out of curiosity, would other grains, and there's a variety of grains listed here, work in this recipe? Yes, definitely. I mentioned that brown rice could be a substitute, but I see you've mentioned some other things like bulgur, for example. If you're familiar with some of those other grain alternatives that are out there, same idea. Swap the 2 cups of cooked quinoa for 2 cups of your grain of preference, and that'll balance the meal nicely. Great question. How long will this be kept in the refrigerator? So up to 4 days in that airtight container. Will the recipe be sent to attendees? Absolutely. We're going to send a copy of the recipe, a copy of this recording, and the nutrition information so you can see how it might fit into your overall diet. Is there a nutritional difference between the feta crumbles and the feta brick, or is that just a convenience item? It is just a convenience item. If you prefer to buy cheese on the block, or in the brick form, you can absolutely do that. Crumbled feta, I think, just works so nice for the salads because it's easy to go. We're just topping it and then moving on. Oh, and then I saw some people mention broccoli slaw, bagged cabbage to speed things up. And then one more question, what can you substitute for almonds? Thanks for mentioning that. I should have asked or added something about that. So when we added the almonds, we were bringing in some protein and some healthy fats. So when I think of substitutions, I'm usually looking for something in the same food group or something that's nutritionally similar to keep everything balanced. So if you're not crazy about almonds, you could do some crushed walnuts on top of this. In fact, I think that would be absolutely delicious. I love walnuts on salads. Crushing those up and sprinkling those would bring in the healthy fats and a little bit of protein as well. So that would probably be my #1 substitute. But if you're feeling creative and you want to experiment, you can try any nut out there. Cashews, for example, are not always found on salads, but they would work just as well if you have them sliced and chopped up. Sprinkle them on there, add that crunch, that protein, and that healthy fat. So any other nut would be a good substitute for this. But if you want to take the almonds out entirely, maybe you've got some nut allergies or you're just not a big fan of them, that is totally okay. We've got a lot of protein coming from the chickpeas and the feta cheese already, so it could still be a nice meal. If you're someone who eats animal proteins, maybe taking out the almonds and adding that grilled chicken we talked about could bring the protein up a little bit higher. And then another question just popped up, would making the chickpeas crispy by baking remove the nutritional value? It would not remove the nutritional value. If you want to bake them, I know a lot of people will season chickpeas and kind of have a little crunchy chickpea snack. If you want that crunchy texture on here, go for it. You can definitely add that in. We were working with just the canned chickpeas today, nothing fancy done to them because they do work well in salads, but I've made salads previously on this program that have the crunchy chickpeas baked in, and they're a nice texture as well. So we went a little bit over on time today, but we had so many good questions, so I really appreciate that engagement and people just sharing their thoughts and asking for more information. So this is the superfood salad again with that lemon dressing. Very beautiful to look at, very colorful, super, super tasty, holds up well in the fridge for up to 4 days and gets you 6 servings. So you can make a batch of this on a Sunday, have some meals lined up for later in the week, or maybe if you've got company or a big household, you can make a nice batch to satisfy everybody. So keep an eye out in your email. We're going to send, again, the video recording, the recipe, and the nutrition information, along with a link to a short survey where you can let us know what you thought of today's program and if you've got any feedback or suggestions for future programs. We're always on the lookout for ways to improve what we offer. Additionally, we do programs like this all the time throughout the month. We do cooking demonstrations twice a month, but we also offer a variety of programs from guided meditation and chair yoga to our snack and share support group, our Mindful Mondays. We've got a great list of offerings. So if you're interested in never missing one of these, you can be added to our mailing list. You can email me directly at rsmith250@gsu.edu, and we'll put that in the chat in just a moment. And that way you can get on our mailing list and be part of our weekly emails that go out every Monday to let you know what's going on. Speaking of which, tomorrow at noon, we are going to have a guided meditation session from 12 to 12:30. So if you're interested, you can check that out. All of our events are uploaded to the GSU web calendar, so you can find it there. And many of our offerings are on the USG Wellbeing calendar as well, so you can often find our events listed there too. I see Cheryl just put that in the chat. Thank you so much, Cheryl. So thank you everyone for attending today. Really appreciate you taking the time to learn something new, find a way to enrich your diet and be just a little bit healthier. So I hope you have a great rest of the day and a very good week, and keep an eye out for that email. Thank you so much.